Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tracing India's absolutely incredible trajectory from a newborn republic into a modern global powerhouse. We're looking at a nation that, in just a few short decades, shook off centuries of colonial subjugation to become a defining force of the 21st century. It's a story of profound transformation, and we're going to break down exactly how it happened.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be taking a chronological journey through 5 defining eras: foundations of a republic, the Indira Gandhi era, the 1991 economic liberalization, tech, space, and growth, and finally, the modern superpower. To anchor our exploration, let's think about this provocative quote from the source material. It was spoken by Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the opening of the Ram Temple. The wait of centuries has come to an end. Now what lies ahead? You know, that question really hits the nail on the head for what we're exploring today. We're looking at a nation constantly reshaping itself, drawing on this deep, ancient heritage, while literally racing toward a highly advanced future.
All right, let's dive right into part 1, Foundations of a Republic, Building a New State.
So picture this. It's right after the violence and division of the 1947 partition. India had to figure out, how on earth do we govern such an incredibly diverse population? Well, their answer was the 1950 Constitution, and it was massively ambitious. They established a universal democracy, meaning voting rights for all citizens over 21. Crucially, they made sure to enshrine secularism, which was absolutely vital for protecting all faiths equally and avoiding the religious conflicts that had just torn the region apart. They protected regional languages like Bengali and Tamil right alongside Hindi, and in a truly historic move, they formally abolished the legal category of untouchable and introduced historic reservations, basically a form of positive discrimination for scheduled castes and tribes to guarantee their representation in universities and government. While the Constitution laid the legal groundwork, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was busy steering early economic growth. He actually used state-directed socialist-leaning 5-year plans, favoring government investment over a purely free market. But honestly, his most far-reaching legacy? Education. Back in 1950, his government established the Indian Institutes of Technology, or IITs. Keep those in mind, because what you really should take away from this is that those early seeds of high-quality STEM education are literally what powers India's tech dominance decades later. Moving right along to Section 2, the Indira Gandhi era, power and turbulence. Now, Indira Gandhi's time in office was, well, it was an absolute roller coaster. She takes power in 1966, establishing herself as a remarkably talented politician. By 1971, she decisively intervenes in the Bangladesh War of Independence, crushing the Pakistani military and securing Bangladesh's freedom. Just 3 years later, boom, she makes India the world's 6th nuclear-armed state. But then, things take a massive turn. Facing corruption charges and a court order to leave office in 1975, she just refuses. Instead, she declares a state of emergency, effectively ruling as a dictator for nearly 2 years with sweeping censorship. And it all ends tragically in 1984. After ordering a military assault on the revered Sikh Golden Temple in Operation Blue Star, she is assassinated by her own Sikh bodyguards.
But amidst all that extreme political volatility, we have to highlight one of the most vital achievements of her era: the Green Revolution. By bringing in modern farming technology and fertilizers, her government completely transformed Indian agriculture. Why this matters is just profound. It practically banished the devastating famines that had hounded the Indian subcontinent for centuries, finally securing a massive, stable food supply for a rapidly growing population.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 1991 liberalization, massive economic pivot. So, throughout the 1980s, India was importing heavily. We're talking televisions, computers, new technologies. It modernized the country quickly, but it also created a massive trade imbalance. By 1991, this reached a crippling crisis point. So, the huge question forced upon the government was, how do you save a crashing economy that has been tightly controlled by the state for 40 years? Well, they made a really hard choice to readjust. Pre-1991, the economy was heavily regulated. Post-1991, they completely rolled back those regulations, scaled down government control, and opened the doors wide to foreign investment. And the results were explosive. By unleashing the market, India's per capita GDP surged by almost 50% in just a single decade between 1990 and 2000. It fundamentally rewired the nation's trajectory from a closed system into an emerging global economic titan. That newfound wealth perfectly sets the stage for Section 4, Tech, Space, and Growth, Reaching for the Stars.
Just look at the years 2013 and 2023. These numbers are staggering testaments to their space program. In 2013, India successfully put a probe in orbit around Mars. Then, a decade later, in 2023, they pulled off their first successful landing on the moon. No way around it, these aren't just scientific milestones. They're immense points of national pride that signal India's absolute arrival as a top-tier aerospace pioneer.
And what's fueling these space-age achievements? An absolute educational powerhouse. Remember those IITs founded by Nehru we talked about earlier? Today, Indian universities are churning out some of the top science, technology, and engineering graduates in the entire world. This incredible talent pool is exactly why there's such heavy Indian representation in global hubs like Silicon Valley. It's also driving rapid domestic urbanization, with 1 in 4 Indians living in cities by the turn of the millennium. The tech boom wasn't an accident, right? It was the payoff of decades of structural planning.
Let's bring it all into the present with our final section, the modern superpower, India today.
The economic scale is just undeniable today. Let this metric sink in for a second. In 2022, India officially overtook the United Kingdom to become the 5th largest economy in the world. I mean, there is some profound historical poetry there, economically eclipsing the very empire that once colonized it. They weathered the 2008 global recession better than most and have been on this steady, powerful upward climb ever since. Now, when we analyze this modern era under Narendra Modi and his BJP party, the source material points out a really interesting dual approach. On the international stage, Modi has embraced a massive globalist economic expansion, navigating complex diplomacy with the US, Europe, and BRICS nations. But domestically, our sources note his leadership has simultaneously revived a Hindu nationalist ideology. While supporters see this as a rightful celebration of India's ancient Hindu heritage, critics argue it leaves less space for minority groups like Muslims and Sikhs. It's an incredibly complex, multifaceted era of massive global expansion happening alongside deep domestic shifts. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping metric of all hit the news in March 2024. That was the exact moment India officially surpassed China to become the single most populous nation in human history. Never before have so many people lived under one flag. It's a massive, unprecedented opportunity in terms of workforce and cultural power, but of course, it also presents the monumental logistical challenge of feeding, housing, and representing over 1.4 billion people. Looking back at this phenomenal 70-year trajectory, from a newly independent republic struggling with the aftermath of partition, all the way to having the world's largest population and 5th largest economy today, we have to leave you with this final thought. As the global order shifts once again, will India successfully manage its incredible diversity and cement itself as the definitive superpower of the 21st century? Based on the history we just unpacked, they certainly have the momentum to do it. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.